And here he is. Good afternoon, Stink. How the heck are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing pretty good. You know, had a very eventful week here at the Fan. I think the big question right now is: are the Niners banged up enough? Like, how bad are they? Could the Cowboys actually beat them?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, and I don't know who's going to be available. Jawan Jennings comes back. He had a hip injury. I don't know where Debo. It doesn't feel like he's in the hospital right now with some form of pneumonia, so it doesn't sound like he's going to be cleared to play. Obviously, they're trying to get Christian McCaffrey back after the bye week. But, the big thing that you would lean on, obviously, if you're a Niners fan or, if you're Kyle Shanahan, is we got to get our run game going. Dallas has been a sieve when they played against really good run teams. So can we get that run game going, and can we create some play action with some of our young wide receivers, some of our young players to have some success in that, in that fashion or in that aspect of our offensive game plan. But, the Niners are beat to a pulp. There's no question about it.
Can the Cowboys run against them like the Chiefs got loose on the other night?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, again, nothing. You always look at kind of what comes out of the bye week, right? What can you do in the bye week? And there used to be a time like when back in my day where the bye week was like, go back to training camp practices. Let's work on the crap we haven't worked on. Let's work on the stuff that, that we need to get better at. Let's work on technique. Let's work on all the different things, the nuance of blocking and some of the schemes that we're lacking in and stuff. And you just don't do that in today's game, right? I mean, you don't put on full pads and go beat each other up and try to get better at that stuff. So, you're not doing that. You haven't changed personnel last time I checked, so you're still, lack the personnel and the execution of that personnel to be significantly better. Can you get better? Certainly. Can you have a little bit better technique on some things? Absolutely. But the issue with the game to me is you don't work on those things. So I always. It's funny. I was at a game, calling a game in Detroit a year ago, and just bumped into Roger Goodell, and he talked about, hey, what are we going to do to protect the quarterbacks, and how are we going to, fix this quarterback injury situations that we have right now? And my response to him was, you got to practice. Running the football that's a skill. I always say, offensive line is the most skilled position in football. It always pisses me off when people talk about, skill position players. Really? Really? Because I can line up and, we could go out and play catch. I could throw a football to you and you could throw it back to me. If we did one-on-ones, I'd whip your ass.
Yeah.
There's no way, you're going to be able to compete with me in that because there's a skill. And then you talk about offensive line and the run game in general. Collectively, we're the worst athletes on the football field. And we're expected to, we're always playing against a guy who's a better athlete than us. And we're expected to win 100% of the battles. And if I give up one sack or I make one bad play, after I could whip your ass for 65 plays in a row, if I give up one sack, you go to the Pro Bowl and I'm a piece of garbage. Mm-hmm. So there's an unbelievable skill involved in running the football. There's an unbelievable skill involved in protecting against guys who are better athletes than us. And ultimately, we no longer work on it. So we go out there and say, hey, man, make sure you block these guys. But we're not going to actually, work on the fit. We're not actually going to come off the ball. We're not actually going to do the things that are required to be really good at that when you're a lesser athlete. It is mind-boggling to me. And a lot of the things that we do as a league in general, it's the unintended consequences of stupidity. We take all these things out to make the game safer, to make the game this, or make the game this, or we think we're going to avoid injuries. And ultimately, the game gets worse and more guys get hurt because they're not as skilled as they used to be. So, I know I'm an old guy standing on, the porch yelling at clouds, but that has a lot to do with with some of the, just some of the bad play that is out there and the bad execution that is out there right now as we watch this product.
It's Mark Schlereth with you, and you yelling at clouds is some great content, Mark. We absolutely love your football wisdom. The Insider Call is brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. You can purchase Hellman's at your local Walmart, Kroger, or grocery store to add extra deliciousness and creamy flavor to your game day dishes this football season.
Sting, I saw Breakfast Ball. You kind of gave your colleagues there at FS1 some love when it came to you're never picking the 49ers to beat the Chiefs again as long as they've got Reed and Mahomes. But how much credit does Steve Spagnuolo need to get when it comes to that as well? Never been beaten by one of those Shanahan offenses. We talked to you about this a few weeks ago. Defensively, what is it the Chiefs are doing to just give the 49ers so many fits?
Yeah, they are really, they are really good, and they're playing exceptional football. And, ultimately, they're defending the run. They've got a couple of guys that are really stout. I think they play with an aggressiveness, downhill aggressiveness. Spagnuolo's just got them coached up, and they read it. They understand what they're looking at. And then they've got some guys on the outside that can play man-to-man. And so they get to the point where they're like, hey, man, we're going to commit guys to the run game. We understand this run game. I think they do a really good job of not getting off their marks, not getting out of their gaps. And so part of the beauty of the Shanahan offense, when you look at what Shanahan does, what Mike McDaniels does in Miami, I'm studying the Miami game right now because I've got that this weekend. Or you look at LaFleur with all the motions and the shifts and the different ways to attack an edge, they just basically get leverage and they get kind of position on you with those motions. And I think Kansas City does a really good job of not overreacting to that stuff and understanding like the scheme and what they're doing. And, one of the ways, and I always look at kind of the edge and how they do this with personnel, like you can line up on the edge and let's just call it 18 handoff. And you can block 18 handoff. You can get in two tights west, right? And you can block that edge with those two tight ends, and you can roll off to a safety that's rolled down, right? And you can block it that way, or you can keep a tight end out there. You can arc release that tight end, make it look like you're blocking that defensive end, and then have a fullback load him, right? So it's still 18 handoff, but now you've blocked that edge two different ways. Now I can get on that edge without a fullback, and I get tight end to tackle to block that guy. And so we're still running 18 handoff, but now it's a whole different look that you're looking at as that defensive end. So I just gave you one play, 18 handoff, and I give you three different ways to block that defensive end. I could come up with another three just as sure as I'm sitting here in 2 seconds. And ultimately that defensive end now has defended one play, but he's defended 6 different schemes against him. And so for a defense, it looks like 6 different separate different plays, especially to the edge of that defense. But for the offense, 2 guys exchange what they're doing. And ultimately 9 guys are doing the exact same thing they do every time you call 18 handoff. So it makes it really confusing to the edge of that defense on what this play is, how am I getting blocked, and ultimately how many times are you going to run that in a game? 5 or 6? Well, I just blocked it 5 different ways or 6 different ways. So it really becomes one of those things that for an offense is pretty easy, but for a defense it's really confusing and it really looks weird. And ultimately, Kansas City does a really good job of not having bad eyes in those situations. And then because they do such a good job, they make San Francisco play a drop back game, and that's not what San Francisco's good at. They're just not really a drop back team. They're a run the ball first team, set up the hard run action, play action off of that, and occasionally some play pass stuff, which is the deeper 7-step drops where you're keeping 6, 7, 8 guys in and running 2-man routes. So that's what they do exceptionally well. And maybe it's just because they've seen it a lot. Spag sees it within his own division or has seen it within his own division. But the guy is just really exceptional at getting his players to play fast and hard and just really smart football is the biggest thing.
Hey, Mark, what locker room reaction would you have had as a player if your head coach called you soft in a press conference?
Yeah, that is the dirtiest 4-letter word in football. And, there's a difference, I think, when you talk about Gerard Mayo, there's a difference between saying we play soft and then calling me soft, right? Calling me soft those are fighting words. And hey, we played soft today, that there's a difference because, like as much as that pains me to hear and as much as it, pains me to even think about, there's some games certainly where as an offense and even individually, like I played soft. I wasn't what I wanted to be. And like those are the films, when you see those film, those are the films that you just want to destroy. Can we bury that in a pit and never bring it back up? I don't ever want to see that again. It's embarrassing. So those are things, man, that really hurt you as a player. So, but the bottom line as a player also, is it true? Like I always think about it from that standpoint. Is it true? Did we play soft? And I remember saying it on the radio in Denver years ago, and I got a phone call from Derek Wolfe, who was a great player for the Broncos. And, I was doing radio. He was playing. So it's right after the whole no-fly zone. It's a couple of years later and after like a year or 2 years after they won the Super Bowl. And I called their defense soft on the radio, and he was livid. I got a call from him, and I was like, let me just ask you a question. You guys gave up 220 yards. I agree, you have 220 yards on the ground, 220 yards rushing. And I go, I don't know what you call that, but in my day we called that soft, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, like we're tight, but he was mad. But I was like, dude, is it true? Did you guys get run through? And, ultimately you can't defend it, right? And so if it's true and you played collectively, you played soft, well then guess what? The truth hurts, and you got to wear that damn thing, and then you got to go out and correct it.
Yeah, go fix it. Well said, Mark. Appreciate your thoughts. Enjoy Week 8. We'll catch up with you next week.
Sounds good, guys. Take care.